I showed earlier, the icon, the label-looking thing, wiggle a little bit and change the color. So, and that's pretty much it, really. You have to, obviously, on your image view or whatever view, you want to set your source as the animated version, animated vector drawable that you had earlier, and then call your icon dot get drawable, and then start. And that's it. You can kind of see the animation here. So yeah, a little more interactive, a little more fun. If you guys watched the material design talks earlier, there was a bunch of really good stuff. You know, vector drawables are definitely like one of the things you can play around with if you want to make an app more material, more fun to play with. So another thing with vectors is that you can easily morph paths. If you were to do an animation on I guess like on Android or web, you'd have to draw like a set of frames. Like if you want to do like a 15 frame animation, you'd have to like kind of like provide your app or your app like 15 frames of animations. But with a vector drawable, all you have to do really is give it like a to and from path. So, for example, I made this vector on Inkscape. It doesn't look like much, but it's a cat, and I want to animate it into something like this. So you can kind of see the cat is now, the ears, the head, they're all black, the eyes are white, and you see its eyes blinking. Like, you know, basically its eyes go from this to this. And that's without using any code or without any in-between animations. Just vector drawable. So you see the parts of this vector here. You have a left eye, which is an ellipse, the right eye, which is another ellipse, the left ear and right ear, which are triangles, you know, kind of like my first vector example earlier, and the head, which is another ellipse. So why are we using an ellipse instead of a circle? The thing is, like with path morphing, one of the hard parts about it is that when you morph something, it has to retain the same shape. And pretty much like this is a circle, but this is not, right? And you can't go from circle to ellipse when you morph. You want to you kind of want to hack it and trick it into like thinking that this is an ellipse, which kind of makes sense, right? Like this is an ellipse, this is an ellipse. All the difference is like the radius on the top and bottom part are just a little smaller, right? Can you see that? I guess like a little primer on ellipse versus a circle. An ellipse is kind of has like two radiuses, like a major radius and a minor radius. In this case, let's just call it like a y radius and an x radius. And then a circle has like the same radius all throughout the thing. So, well, enough talk about path morphing and all those theory. But how do you even import like an SVG you created using Inkscape or whatever? So on the latest versions of Android Studio, you could just easily right-click on Drawable, go on New, click Vector Asset, and it should give you this screen, which all you have to do really is provide where you saved your drawable. It'll import it right away. I know there's a bunch of errors, but in my experience, I never had any. I don't know, it never really did anything. It's just some bunch of errors. It has a bunch of options, but I don't know, never really bothered with them. And when you import it, this is what it looks like. So I went ahead and changed the fill colors to black for the head and the ears, and then white for the eyes. And Android Studio creates you this file, which is like your vector drawable. So you can kind of see that each path in this vector kind of has like its own object with its own stroke alpha, stroke color, fill color, and whatnot. But we'll specifically, since we're just trying to make a blinking animation earlier, we'll just stick to the eyes. So I guess I kind of cheated and I didn't really show you guys what the paths are for the eyes, but I'll go ahead and show you guys. Might be a little hard to see, but the way I cheated on this is basically make each eye 2 parts. First part of the eyes is like a top curve. Second part is a bottom curve, and that's defined by this A command. So you remember how we had an M command earlier? Now we have like an A, which is part of which is an ellipse. And you can read more about SVGs on their documentation. I linked it on my talk too. But in this case, the first A command corresponds to the top curve, and the second A command corresponds to the bottom curve. So all I'm going to do here is actually let's roll back. So the first two commands of A is your X radius and your Y radius. Keep that in mind. So right now your X radius and Y radius is like 92. So if you want to, so this is 92 right now. We want to make it smaller. So let's change it to some kind of arbitrary number like 5, just to make it smaller. That's what it looks like. So top and bottom curve are smaller. And all I had to change was the second number, 92, I changed it to 95. So putting all of that together. So it's pretty simple too. You don't really have to do much code. All I'm doing here is create 2 animation files for the left eye and 1 for the right eye. And tell it to repeat infinitely over a span of 500 milliseconds. Change the path value from this to that for both eyes. And exactly what I just said. And then create an animated vector file telling Android Studio to use your original vector, link your animation to the corresponding paths, what I just said, and then call ImageView.getDrawable.start, and that's all there is to it. When you think about it, there's not much code. It's just a bunch of XML declarations. So yeah, and when you think of, and another cool thing, like I said earlier, you're not defining what happens, you're not giving a different asset for what happens in between. You're just saying, hey, I want you to go from this point to that point. And Android takes care of it for you. So now that you know how to import vectors into Android Studio and animate them, where can you actually use them? So if you went to the material talks earlier, one of the guiding principles of material design is that motion respects and reinforces the user as a prime mover. So I guess my take on that is that if you're a user and you do something, your app has to tell you that it consumed whatever you just told it to do. If you press a button, change the color, do a ripple effect, whatever. Don't leave me hanging. Make me feel satisfied when I do an action on your app. So one place you could put it for navigation, view pager transitions, opening and closing navigation doors. Lists, you have callbacks for scrolling, overscroll, loading, progress bars, that's pretty cool. I have an example for a bunch of these, by the way. And splash screens, that's the coolest thing where you could put vector animations. I can show you much more later. So view pagers. So the thing with view pagers is that, the thing with navigation is that scenes should work together to tell the user a story. I just stole that from the material design docs. But if you're trying to navigate from one point to the other, it shouldn't just flash in front of the user. It should kind of make it feel like, hey, I'm going from this point to that point. And how do you do that with Vector Drawables? I just realized that it's not going through. My YouTube video is not going through, but I'm thankful I prepared a little bit here. You can see my sample app, which is also not playing well. Let me just restart that. on. Well, so everything good so far? Like, did I lose you guys? Or?
What about the file size?
Huh?
File size? I mean, regular JPEG, you're gonna little. Is it gonna be big?
Generally, it's smaller if you don't have a complicated vector, right? Vector size corresponds to like how complicated the vector is. If you have a lot of paths, a lot of curves, or you're using a lot of cool stuff, you're probably gonna make a large file. But the thing is, like, if you're providing your app with multiple assets, you're saving size on that.
Oh, and now you don't have to worry about the canvas.
No.
Or it doesn't use the canvas.
The canvas, as in?
Oh, well, before the vector to do animation, you had to do it on the canvas.
Mm-hmm.
But these don't use the canvas.
Canvas. I mean, I've lost it. What do you mean by canvas? Like canvas in a general sense or an Android sense? Or?
Well, no, the older versions, yeah, they had to put like anything that moved had to be on a canvas.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you still have to kind of care about it, but the thing is, like, if you recall, I'm kind of just declaring the size of the canvas on the Vector Drawable. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that'd probably be easier.
Yeah, you're just declaring the size of nothing much.
Yeah, it's only really me.
Oh, this is annoying.
Yeah, sometimes it happens.
Never. Well, in any case, man, this is like the best part of my presentation too. So if you open up my GitHub and go on my talk, find the link to this, you'll see I have a YouTube link to this animation. It's a view pager. It's a view pager that kind of does stuff whenever where the spider does stuff whenever you change pages. And well, anyways, so what I'm doing here is that on the first page, I'm dropping the spider from here to here. When I swipe to the next page, start another animation, where the spider kind of swings from side to side and wiggles a little bit. When you go on the third page, the spider rolls back up to here, and the spider stops moving. And then on the fourth page, the spider slides down from this point to here. And then spider crawls back up, like as if like, hey, bye. So yeah, like I said, it's all under the view pager. I'm just using on page selected on that. I'm just using that listener. And this is pretty much kind of the code involved in it. Not really much. It seems long because of anonymous inner classes, but when you think about it, it's just if position is this, load this animation. Once you get to this position, use this animation. And once that animation finishes, load this other animation. Not really much. Everything's hidden away in this animation file. Another cool thing, loading indicators. Man, this is kind of sad. I'll try to show you guys in after everything. But loading indicators, another way to kind of another place where you could provide the user some feedback as to what's going on. If you're loading something, you don't want to make the user feel that nothing's going on. You want to make them feel like, hey, it's still going, it's still chugging along. And that's another place where you could use Vector Drawables. So in this example, I'm actually scaling the boxes up and down, making them smaller and bigger, and changing the colors. And once the loading finishes, scale them all down and move them to the middle and change the color. So yeah. So in this example, I'm just using an async task. All of you have heard of an async task before, right? So using task has callbacks for before executing the action, on pre-execute, and that's also where I'm starting my first animation, and then I'm using on post-execute to start my last animation, which is to scale down and put it into the middle. Yeah, on progress update, but that's not important here. Sample code, you see there's really not much. Just set this animation, done. Start it, done. So, you know, every detail about your animation is that it's hidden away in your XML file. Buttons, pretty much my first example, where you have this label thing that turns that turns from gray to green and wiggles a little bit, kind of vibrates a little bit, telling you that, hey, you clicked me. You know, it's like another way to provide the user some visual feedback as to, like, if you did something, then it should react, right? Other button things you can do, if you have invalid or valid entries in an edit text field, one cool animation that I saw online was that you have an X that turns into a check. It morphs into a check instead of just, you know, like changing from red to blue or whatever. It actually has like a vector of like an X that turns into a check, and that was like, wow, that's so awesome. And you could do something like that using the text watcher. You could animate disabling or enabling of buttons after a background operation. Or, for example, you don't want your user to do something, or, you know, don't give them like a way to press a button, like inform them not to press a button when it's not done yet, kind of thing. That's another way you could use animations. Another thing, lists. Recycler views have this listener thing where you have a listener where you could kind of detect if the user is still scrolling or not scrolling. I think that's a really cool place to like show animations if your user is scrolling, or, you know, when they stop scrolling. Just kind of give them feedback that, hey, you're doing something and keep doing it, or, you know, you're not doing something, do something. You can also fire up animations when you reach certain points in the list. For example, if you have like 100 items in your list and it just goes forever, you know, do a certain animation when you're showing the first 20 pages, then start changing up that animation once you get to like the 20th, just to make the user feel like, hey, I'm going deeper into this rabbit hole. And yeah, so that's pretty much my ideas for where you could use vectors. So why not use vectors? So Vector Drawables were introduced fairly recently, Lollipop. So if you don't like using the Compat library, then you're kind of out of luck. But you know, Vector Drawable Compat supports until API 11, so you're going way back if you really want it, if you don't mind using Compat. Greater file size with complex graphics, like what you just asked earlier. Uses more CPU initially. Well, the thing is, it is a set of instructions, right? Everything's kind of, I mean, not everything, but when it's first loaded, it's kind of your phone kind of has to compute for what this vector even translates to. But after that, it shouldn't really matter. When it's drawn or redrawn, like it should be the same or as performant as like a normal raster graphic. Not vectors if you don't like XMLs for whatever reason. And if you really want to do really awesome animations, you may have to produce several XML files. Although there's a way to condense all of that into one file, this thing called an AAPT, although I forgot what it is. But yeah, you could probably look into that later if you have like really complex animations, and you want to condense that into one mega file. And well, so why vectors again? Just to kind of sell animated vector drawables. You can stretch, scale without lossing quality, modify qualities like fill color during runtime. During runtime or while the user is using the app, you could kind of change those qualities, so that's pretty cool. No need to have multiple assets for multiple screen densities. That's another win. You can, vector drawables, that's the name of this talk. And memory use and performance, pretty much similar after the first initial loading of that image. So it's And even then, it's not even that big of a, it's not even that big of a hit CPU-wise. So yeah, more inspiration if you want to learn more or try it out. Facebook recently published this tool called Keyframe. All it does is make After Effects animations work with Android or iOS. In my case, I used Inkspace and I, kind of just like played around with it by eye. But Keyframes kind of lets the designers do their thing, and all you have to do is import their design. So that's pretty cool. Here's another animation that I did. It's supposed to be my dog, but you can kind of see there. You can kind of see that the ears are rotating this way over a span of milliseconds. You see the eyes morph from circle to some kind of ellipse. You can see the tongues. It's kind of happy, but I'm hiding like a part of the tongue here and just kind of stretching it out. I'm just scaling it. So yeah, those are the kinds of things you could do with animated vector drawables. If you have any questions, actually, yeah, I owe you like the stuff that I created and have this kind of inspirational link. It's like an article that was published fairly recently, although my internet is jacking up again. Yeah. 2 minutes. It's right here. So yeah, keyframes, like I mentioned earlier, these are vector graphics, and the funny thing about them is that they're animated in a very fun way. If you want to use if your designers use After Effects, you can import it right away using this. And this article that I found fairly recently, probably 2 days ago, speaks more about vector animations and vector drawables in depth, has a little bit of tutorial about how to draw curves and such. But I'm not here for that. I'm here to show you guys the cool stuff that this guy did. So you could do, with vectors, you could do animations like this. So all you're doing here is kind of like rotating this path and that path, rotating it to kind of imitate like a wiggle effect or a vibration effect. Here, you're kind of morphing it to turn the other way. And that's just one file. And you just have to declare what to do on an XML file. And that's just like, what, 2 lines of code? That. And you also have this thing called a trim.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you have this thing called a trim, which kind of defines where your animation should start or end. So in this case, this is just one file, man. This is just one file. This is just one file. That's just one file. That's really cool to add in as a splash screen or whatever. And it's amazing how you don't have much, you don't need much outside, you don't need a lot of third-party tools for this. It's just given to you by Android. And yeah, morphing, really cool stuff you could do. Here's the X mark, the X thing that turns into a check. This one's a little more familiar with a hamburger. This one's cool too. This one's cool. This one too, if you have like a music app or a media player app. And speaking again about paths, you have to morph into like the same shape. You could kind of, when you enable path coordinates on this thing, you can kind of see the hacky implementation of the author. So you could kind of see that there are paths that are just hidden or tucked away into places because he had to use them in some of the images. So yeah, like in this case, that's a ton of points, and it turns into that. And you can kind of, when you slow the animation down, you can kind of see the points kind of like overlay each other, kind of like to hide and stuff. So yeah, so as a developer, it's kind of hard. It's pretty time consuming. Path morphing is really time consuming. You have to make sure it's the same shape. There's this thing. There's this property of animated vector drawables, so called a cliff path. It kind of just tells Android to not draw over this place. In this case, you can kind of see where it's being flipped. It's not being drawn. This one too. That's pretty cool. And yeah, for loading or downloading. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
I guess the question, does all this work on 4.0?
4.0?
Well, I mean, I'm sure it works on 5.0, but.
Yeah, you could use the compact version of Vector
Oh,
Drawables.
you just use that compact?
Yeah.
Oh.
It goes all the way to like API 11. So I don't know how old 11 is in terms of like, the other versioning, but it goes all the way to 11, so that's pretty old too.
Yeah, yes, it's good enough.
The fun thing is like all of this is given to you straight up by Google. You don't have to do much. And another cool thing you can play around is interpolators. So interpolators are like so if you have like path A to path B, so what happens in between? An interpolator helps you kind of define what happens in between. If you're going from path A to path B, are you going to speed up here and slow down there? Are you going to go to here but go all the way over there first and then go back here? So it's just like another fun material way of animating your stuff. And the funny thing is, it's so simple to add in. It's literally just another line of declaration on your animated vector drawable. So you could totally use that.
And it's not stealing.
And they're given to you. They're given to you by the operating system technically. So, but yeah. I mean, I'm pretty disappointed at the internet here and how I couldn't run the animations because they're really cool. But seriously, go on my GitHub, go on the link to the talk. It's all right there. Check it out, and hopefully it inspires you to make more interactive apps. Yeah. Questions or whatever?
XML, you have to underline any elastic.
One of the last thing.
Yeah, it's my first one. Thank you.
So do you have this is going to be
Yeah, you can do. Yeah, it's on my GitHub actually. Yeah, let's check it out.
So we got accessibility, coding remarks, and prices. If somebody's going to get a TV,
On my GitHub, it's right here. This is my GitHub channel.
somebody's going to carry the TV. Like, I don't know. I know, but like something compact, like a monitor. Yeah, 4K monitor is more useful.
Noel? I don't.
Do you gonna stick around for dinner?
Yeah, but yeah, I appreciate it. I tell my email's right there too.
I think it's dinner is just 6:16.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make my splash screen use some move.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can tell. That's
Yeah, make like the arm move back and forth or something like that.
Good.
Yeah, splash screen.
Yeah. Please check out the GitHub. Check out the top. The slides and
Yeah, okay.
the videos are there. It's really interactive.
So what I could do is just go for the sports bar in Santa Monica.
Let's say I use that one and I make some programs and then I get those clients and I import it to the Visual Studio and feed it to the file, the XML file. And then later I make the file for the animation, right? To mesh on the wish or to decide on the animation.
You could.
And then I have an image here, I load and I start. Version 1 at some point, I can stop it with the
Programmatically. Yeah. Yeah, just, you know,
Okay, yeah, I'm heading out.
yeah, just stop it.
Yeah, see you next time.
All right,
Yeah.
Let's say here's some small stuff. Here is small stuff. I go to pictures. I will put it there, full stuff. And let's say that the splash screen example, I will put the start code in the on page.
Yeah, you can do it like that, or you know, if you have like a button, put it on the listener.
Yeah, yeah. No, let's say no button. Button is easy. You click button, some animation.
Yeah.
But if it's just loading, put it on page
Yeah, you can do that.
for this.
For a splash, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I don't know, depending on your requirements, if you're loading while the, I mean, depending on your animation, right? Is your animation like repeating infinitely, or is just like, and then that's it? If it's like repeating, you probably don't want to stop it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Now my question is during the runtime.
Yeah.
Can I choose those options for the animation? Let's say now I want blue.
Yeah. So you can kind of see here, like I'm starting this animation where the spider is like wiggling its legs, right? And you can see here it stopped. You could do that easily as long as you kind of define paths for each, you know, for the legs. And that's kind of like the weird part about this is that for each thing that you have to animate, each path here, you kind of have to name it and then like, you know, give it a file, link that animation to.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Do I have to do it something like XML? Like tweaking it and tweaking XML and from XML just call that one?
Yeah.
Like that, not put in Java.
Oh, not
like
put in
because
Java.
I did one program,
Yeah, you
I
can-
did
you
one app, like marking, just on buttons, regular. I use the animator.
Yeah.
I call the animator. It's a rotate or spin or something.
Yeah. Well, if you look at, I know
use
that.
the other way. But and then when I was doing the app,
Tip-
I learned about Vector Drawables, but then
Yeah, typically you could have like you could tell Android to do the animation sequentially or together. So in this case, I'm doing two actions, right? I'm wiggling and I'm rotating from left to right. So in that case, I'm doing everything at the same time. What you're saying is that you want to do it sequentially. You want to do one animation first, and when it finishes, do the other, right? All on XML.
besides that, like this one, look. See?
Yeah.
This one I did in Java mostly. So I put like pause a second, so just wait a second, and then after this do that one. But this I put in Java.
Yeah.
So I'm asking like if I make a drawable and then all these animation cases. Again I put in XML. And then in Java, depending let's say on which behavior is, call that animator. Is it like that? And then let's say in Java, it's this page. We call the animate this page. XML.
Yeah.
Is it like that?
No, I'm doing it in Java.
Oh, in Java?
Yeah, I'm using like the on-page listener for
Yes.
view pagers.
Okay, let's say the view pager listener
Yeah.
on change. What are you changing for the animation? Are you changing the XML
file,
path?
yeah.
That's
I
what
have
I'm
a different
saying.
file, yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
So beforehand, you think what kind of this object that it is one file.
Yeah.
Then you make a couple of files for the different animations,
Yeah.
and you just all the different listeners for those.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. I'm not sure if there's a way to like kind of animate
Yeah.
each on like using Java though. Because it would be cool, right? If you have like an over scroll, you scroll too much, given vectors, you could theoretically you should be able to like stretch out an image as
Yeah.
you do an over scroll back. I haven't found a way to do that, although I do remember seeing some apps that do that. Like if you look at Snapchat, if you scroll up, you see like the stars stretch, like with some animation. So there should be a way, but I just haven't figured it out. Sorry if I'm not too clear, but
No, cool. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
appreciate it.
Nice talk. See you later.
not like, oh, we get paid to do this.